Good evening and welcome. We're live on screen again with AYV on Sunday. The Times Sierra Leone newspaper on 27th March 2024 reported that President Bill is the record holder of the most traveled leader in Africa. The president's office and the government have mentioned before that the president's trips are to attract direct foreign investment and launder the international image of Sierra Leone. But that image has now been stained by drug scandals, security and terrorism threats, and misuse of U.S. visas. Sierra Leone, which is known as the Lion Mountain and once the anthems of West Africa, is today ranked the second unhappiest country in the world. Tonight, we ask the following questions. Sierra Leone's image amid recent scandals. What has the government done? How can Sierra Leone's international image be laundered? Tonight, we will deep dive into some of these issues. This is AYV on Sunday. Now, there's still a pending extradition request from the Dutch government to Sierra Leone for Jos Lyjekers, a wanted fugitive sentenced for drug-related crimes. Last week, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, LDEA, and Joint Security Forces intercepted a large drug shipment in Foya District, Lofa County, worth over 77,000 United States dollars, allegedly from Sierra Leone, with threats here and there of acts of terrorism. According to the U.S. ambassador as well, Brian Hunt, 15% of Sierra Leoneans who travel on tourist and business visas to the United States of America overstay, while 35% of those who travel on student visas remain in the United States illegally. Tonight, we ask the following questions. What is the government doing to rebrand the image of the country? What is the best international public relations approach to these scandals? This is AYV on Sunday, and I am Fabian Sweel. Good evening and welcome. Joining us tonight is a live audience of journalism students from Limpopo University of Creative Technology, who shall at some point get an opportunity to make a contribution in the program. We highly encourage you to participate in the program by simply dropping a comment or question about what we're discussing on our Facebook page on the comment section of AYV News. On the panel tonight are Imran Sillah, Media Advisor, Strategic Communications Unit, Ministry of Information and Civic Education. We're expecting Dr. Victor Moinina, Governance Lecturer at the Institute of Public Administration and Management, IPAM. We have Mohammed Jallo, Director, Tourism, Travel and Exchange Program from the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. And online via Zoom, we have Vickie Remoe, Public Relations and Digital Marketing, Digital Media Strategist. Good evening, gentlemen in the studio. Good evening to you, Vickie, online, and to the audience in the studio.
Thanks for the opportunity. Good evening.
Right. So we would start the conversation straight with you, Imran Sillah, representing the Ministry of Information. There have been too many scandals, as I read through the introduction of tonight's conversation. Too many scandals. What has the government done about these scandals, considering the impact they have on the country's reputation?
Well, thank you very much. Let me just make one more addition, which is when the flyer was sent out to me, it did talk about a spotless. That was the exact adjective being used to describe what potentially could be or should be the image of nation states, and us, included. As I saw that and listening to your intro, I think we need to reshape this conversation. You don't need to thank me now, you can thank me later. Because
unfortunately, shaping the conversation is a decision by the production team, which has already been done. So I'll ask again, I was asking, too many drugs-related scandals hitting Sierra Leone's image recently. What has the government done to address these issues, considering its impact on the country's image?
So I'm going to continue from where I left off when you interjected. I'm going to attempt to reshape the conversation, yeah? And nobody needs to thank me now. I can be thanked later. What do I mean by that? There is nowhere in the world where you can use the adjective as having a spotless society or spotless nation. Every nation state have got their own challenges. It depends from from state to state and what those issues are and how they come up from time to time. Nation states have been determined based on how they react to situations as and when they do occur.
And that's exactly why we're asking you tonight. What has the government of Sierra Leone done to address these issues that are leaving a stain on the country's reputation and image?
So nation states have been determined based on their reaction to situations as and when they do occur. It is also useful, very useful for this conversation for us to have the context right and situate it properly. What do I mean by that? This is 7 years, almost, of President Julius Maada Bio's government. In 7 years, His Excellency the President has been chairman of the C10, that's the Committee of 10, which has to do with the reform of...
Imran, Sillah. Imran, the conversation is guided by questions from the presenter. What you're doing right now is taking off of what the question was not. The question was not about the history of what's going on. It's about this context of drugs-related scandals and what the government is now doing to address these scandals, considering, again, its impact on the country's reputation. This program is guided by time. We would not want to get to a point where there's more to add to the conversation and we're running out of time. Let's please manage our time wisely and respond to the questions put to you.
So I think you should understand me by now. We've had a fair amount of time coming into this studio having those conversations. I'm not one to be pigeonholed into a conversation, just so we know that, and let us establish that from the outset. I should be able to have the liberty and the latitude as it relates to a question being asked as to what the answer should be coming from me. You cannot now guide my thoughts as to how I answer to those questions. What I'll ask and urge that you do at every given opportunity that I have tonight is for you to ask the questions and allow me and the public ultimately to run to those conclusions. So if we get that format right, I think this back and forth we wouldn't have for the rest of the program.
You still have not answered what the government is doing.
You seem to be drifting away and you're not allowing me to answer to the question.
The only drift is you not answering the question put to you.
I don't have to answer it.
What is the government doing?
I don't have to answer it in the way you're thinking. Let me situate this conversation correctly, and then we can move on from that point. I mean, if you appreciate that, that's fine. If not, then I think you can ask someone else.
Is the government doing anything about these drug-related scandals?
You talk about image and the reputation of Sierra Leone, and this government in particular. And that image does not just rest on what has happened in the past few weeks. It's an image that has been in existence for 7 years now of President Julius Maada Bio's government. So I think it is worthwhile and useful and necessary that if we are talking about image, we have to situate this conversation correctly and make sure that we pinpoint every single thing that has happened in 7 years to get to this point. And then we can also now talk about the reaction of this government in these moments and the references you've made. So if you appreciate that, then I'll move on from this point. Let me make the point. His Excellency the President has been chairman of the C10, that's the committee that has to do with the reform of the Security Council. He is also, at this point as we talk, Sierra Leone is a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, and that is going to be for the next 2 years. We also have the MCC to talk about, which Sierra Leone and this government particularly has passed for 7 years in a row. Let me go to the figures for 2024 as against 2025, because if we want to talk about image, it directly deals with the image of Sierra Leone and its reputation, and that's the reason why we have passed the MCC for 7 years in a row. For control of corruption index, in 2024, it was 76. In 2025, it's 74. Political rights, it's 87 in 2024. It's 90% in 2025. Freedom of information, it's 89% in 2024. It's 91% in 2025. Civil liberties, that's 6% in 2024 and 2025. Girls' education, it's 92% in 2024, it's 94% in 2025. Education expenditures, we had a pass in 2024. In 2025, it was 25%, 97% in 2025. Immunization rates, 89% in 2024 and 79% in 2025. Healthcare, not scored in 2024. We can talk about 2025 at 72%. Employment opportunities, 87% in 2024 and 94% in 2025.
Gives me
Gender
no
in the economy,
pleasure
it's
to
97% in 2025.
My point is this.
You're talking about the character and image of this country. It is useful that we have a conversation
Imran,
that is situated correctly.
Decorum in the studio.
No. You are interjecting. Let me finish and then you get onto it. No. You have started up on a very disruptive note, and I think
a digital media.
have a conversation that is situated
Imran,
properly. And then we can
Imran, I would ask you respectfully to please conduct yourself properly in our studio. Thank you. Vickie Remoe, you are a digital media specialist. From the digital media perspective and the public relations perspective, what do you think Sierra Leone is dealing with currently?
It feels very premeditated coming from you. Let us have a conversation. Give me the latitude and the limit and the freedom.
Yes, go ahead, Vickie. Please make your submission.
General conversation. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it is.
Okay, thank you. So good of you to have a member of the Sierra Leone diaspora represented in this conversation. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuning in, and thank you for AYV for having such a lively conversation today. So I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, who holds the image, or who's the image keeper? And to whom do we wish to project the image, right? I think a lot of times we focus most importantly on Sierra Leone's external image, but even within the external image, there's more than one audience. And by that, I mean that so for me, I think the most important audience internationally, before we even start to talk about the foreigners, it's Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora. And the reason why I say that is because the way Sierra Leoneans feel about Sierra Leone when they're outside of Sierra Leone has dollars and cents implications. If I'm a Sierra Leonean in the diaspora and I have a positive perception of Sierra Leone, and I think that Sierra Leone is going in the right direction, it means that I'm going to spend more money in Sierra Leone. It means that I'm going to invest in Sierra Leone. In 2023, Sierra Leone's remittance received from the diaspora went down about $83 million from the previous year. That is a 27% reduction. Now, I mean, I haven't done a study, no one's done a study as to why that is, but 2023 is also the year that we had the elections and we know what the outcome is. I don't know if there's a actual causation, meaning the outcome of the elections impacted how much people send, but that's just the data, right? That's for us to kind of look at it and know that something happened. So as a Sierra Leonean in the diaspora and someone who is in the media space, someone whose work has over the last two decades been almost exclusively focused on projecting a positive, dynamic, and diverse narrative about Sierra Leone, I think that we as Sierra Leoneans, wherever you find yourself, we have to personalize the quest of projecting a more positive and diverse narrative about Sierra Leone. Yes, in recent times, the stories coming out of Sierra Leone have been disheartening. I don't even think that the international community really cares that much about our stories. If they're what Soraya Samura calls death, disease, and destruction, and now you add drugs, you'll always trend. We all know that when it comes to Africa, when it comes to developing countries of the global south, the international community are always looking for extremes, right? If something is extremely positive, they amplify it. If something is extremely negative, they amplify it. But on a daily basis, I think that what's missing for our public image in Sierra Leone is we are not actively trying to project any one thing in particular. I feel like countries should think of themselves as brands, right? So when I say China, something comes to your mind. It might be Kung Fu, it might be Jackie Chan, it might be Chinese food, it might be Chinese technology, it might be the speed or the numbers in China. But when I say China, you think of something. When I say South Africa, you might think of the Rainbow Nation, you might think of Nelson Mandela, you might think of music, you might think of Amapiano. When I say Nigeria, you might also think of Afrobeats. You might also think of Jollof if you're not. If you're not from Sierra Leone, you might think of jollof. And the question then is, when I say Sierra Leone, what comes to your mind? And as Sierra Leoneans, what do we want to project? I don't think that there's anybody anywhere who loves Sierra Leone who's going to be happy or pleased with what's going out currently, which is drugs. But I would always say that as Sierra Leoneans, when you see any one narrative about your country, you have to reject any one narrative, because we all know that, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie famously said about the problem of a single story narrative, right? We don't want any one story to be the story, especially if it's negative, that gets told about Sierra Leone. We want the story to be dynamic. We want Sierra Leone to be known for many different things. And unfortunately, I love all the data that Imran is sharing. Those are all really important numbers. But the reality is, those are not the things that people remember about a country or a place. The things they remember are the things that get amplified. And if in the recent weeks, the last 3 months, really, actually, the drug story goes a lot further than that, because in 2023, there was a huge container that left Sierra Leone that ended in Wigan that was worth maybe I think they said 70 million pounds or 50 million pounds, that left Sierra Leone and went to Wigan in the United Kingdom. And so the drug story and that the people who were involved in that, they got arrested and they were tried. But that was a whole container of drugs that came from Sierra Leone. So the drug story actually goes back a lot further. But my thing is, whether you're in government or not, especially people who are maybe anti this government, to not celebrate negativity, to not overly amplify negativity, to say, okay, this is one part of the story, but there are other things also happening in Sierra Leone that are positive. We should make sure that those stories get amplified. We shouldn't get upset when the story is factual, right? This issue with the drugs issue that's in the media, it's real. It's real, and it has real consequences, because it means that our country, especially in Europe, because the story isn't that big in the US, but in Europe, for example, it means that if you're a Sierra Leonean, maybe entering an airport in Europe, you might get stopped and triple checked, because now they associate Sierra Leoneans with drug trafficking. These are things that have real life implications. But my invitation to Sierra Leoneans, wherever you find yourself, is to just reject any one narrative as that's our story, because we're diverse and there are always going to be many different positive things to amplify about Sierra Leone. So we should try to do that.
Okay, Vickie, please continue to stay with us there online. I'll come right back to you. Before we end tonight's conversation, you are a digital, you're a PR person and a digital media strategist. Would love to get, submissions on what could be the way forward for Sierra Leone, what strategies we could implement as a country to be able to launder our international image. But please continue to stay with us. I'll come right back to you.
Use the word launder, please. That ain't not fine. Launder, not good.
Ministry of Tourism. So with all these issues happening, it sort of directly comes back on the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, because it's your area to be able to come up with ideas and, plans and programs to attract tourists to this country. With all that's going on, what have you come up with as a way of attracting people to Sierra Leone, making us a tourist destination, regardless of all these things happening, all the scandals online?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me lament on the issue of the image of Sierra Leone. As a ministry, the Ministry of Tourism and the National Tourist Board, we have a national marketing and branding strategy. And with that strategy is a 10-year strategy and a 5-year action plan. And that's one of the first activity that is in that strategy is to roll out the branding and, of course, to contribute to image building. So basically, we go out there, we engage people, we engage tourists, we engage service providers. So when we discuss with them, what we hear is totally different. We do not hear that much of a negative. What we hear is that people are very, very enthusiastic to come to Sierra Leone. They know about the beauty, about the landscape, about the resilience of the people, about the friendliness, the hospitality of Sierra Leone. So they know that, and that is what really they long for to come to Sierra Leone. I must say that our strategy is to ensure that we aggressively and robustly rebrand the image of Sierra Leone.
How?
Because in the past, people thought Sierra Leone is a war-torn country, it's a disease-prone country, but that is no longer the case. We've managed to reach far more people. Now, for instance, we've embarked on digital marketing, robust digital marketing. I'll give you some data. For instance, we have a Facebook page, a YouTube channel to start with. With our YouTube channel, we have about 24 new promotional videos depicting our culture, our beaches, our heritage, our wildlife, and all of that.
Sorry, please also share the handle of those social media accounts for people who are watching who would also like to go check out those pages.
Yes, we'll share that as well.
The
so we have about 126,000 views just last year, and that increased to about 720,000 impressions. And we have about 2,000 new subscribers. And then when you come to the Facebook and the Instagram, we saw an increase of 76% and 122% respectively, reaching about 1.2 million in terms of our Facebook and 112,000 impressions on our Instagram. Not only that, we worked with influencers, about 5 influencers worldwide in Europe, UK and the US, and they are able to help us to generate about 4,000 likes, about 380,000 audience, and 631,000 impressions. We also have our website. We have 3 key websites. We have the ntb.gov.sl, we have the Tourism for All campaign landing page, and of course we also have the tourismsierraleone.com. That one is the business to business website that we use. We also, as a result of our social media interaction, we are able to generate about 53,000. From 53,000, it was increased to 16,400,000 impressions. And people that visited our website, just the Tourism for All campaign, we are able to receive, for the Tourism for All campaign again, we are able to have a website visit, about 113,000 website visitors to our Tourism for All campaign. So we've been doing tremendously well, but not only that, we also embark on, we facilitate international and trade exhibition wherein we go to interact with, like I said, service providers and all of that. There again, we were in ITB recently, and the turnout was very, very impressive. We received more than 4,000 people who came to our stand. They were very interested in ecotourism, they are interested in culture and heritage. In fact, the highest was on ecotourism. So that is why we are saying what we are experiencing is totally different. When people come there, in fact, I was so impressed. We are told that Sierra Leone will be the next upcoming destination, next important upcoming destination as an ecotourism. So not only that, again, we focus on domestic tourism, creating the awareness. We've reached more than 5 million people. Today, 1 in every 4 person knows about tourism. We've reached about more than 700 school children. So a lot is being done in terms of rebranding the image of Sierra Leone. Again, with our marketing representatives, we have one that help us in the UK market. Of course, we also have that in the German market and the Spanish market. We are able.
Translate that data for us into monetary value.
Yeah.
What's the data on what we're making as a nation from tourism over the last, say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, first of all, we need some indicators in terms of tourism is visitor arrivals. When it comes to international arrival, we increased from more than 5%. We reached about more than 97,000 visitors that came here, tourists that came into Sierra Leone. You may not see them in groups, they come in smaller groups, but they come here and they expended more than $47 million into the economy. That's the expenditure in paying for accommodation, expenditure in paying for transportation, in paying for food and beverage and all of that. So we are seeing it. In terms of the facilities, more than 44 facilities was developed here in Sierra Leone. It shows, that's an indicator to show that, yes, tourism is on the increase because people are investing more in the sector. And employment was also increased by 18%. So, yeah.
Let's welcome Victor Moinina. Thank you very much for joining us in the program.
Good evening, AYV, and good evening, Sierra.
I'll come right to you. Let me just still wrap up with tourism ministry. I asked earlier that you share the handles of these social media accounts and the website for people who are watching and listening who would want to check out the social media handles and websites. Please share that quickly before we continue.
Yes, I will do that.
What's the website?
The website is ntb.gov.sl, and then we have tourismsierraleone.com, which is our B2B, and then we have the Tourism for All campaign landing page.
Okay.
So these are there.
What about the YouTube and Facebook?
They're all there. Just go to Ministry of Tourism and the National Tourist Board. You'll be able to interact with our Facebook and our Instagram.
In some
pages.
Countries, especially in some, I know that Jamaica, for example, and even Ghana, they have festivals and activities annually that really sort of drive tourists to that country. What can Sierra Leone point at to say, this is one symbolic thing that annually brings that crowd of tourists into the country.
Yes, I spoke about the partners that we created last year, about 44 partners. Among them, there are two important ones, EcoFest and Bamba Ode. You may be surprised to know that just these two events generated about 50,000 attendees. And when we estimated how much money was spent in attending those two, it's about $1.7 million. Just two events. And we interacted, and we had more than 50 events all across the country that we work closely with our partners, both in Freetown and in the provinces. And we had more than 50,000 people that visited those events. So all of that has been tracked and is being recorded in terms of the number of visitors and attendees, and in terms of the number, the expenditure that is that is spent in attending those events.
There has been talks very recently about lantern, reviving the lantern. What contribution does this have to the current situation, if any?
Yeah, with regards to the lantern, we know this was an event that was there in the past. Definitely the ministry, just like you mentioned, events are very important, and people want to go back to see all of this happening. But again, we have to tread very cautiously, because we cannot do that alone. We have to ensure that the security sector is well prepared and are in line with us having to do that. So for now, we are waiting for signals to be able to know what to do about that.
All right, thank you very much. I'll come right back to you. Victor, welcome again. So this conversation on Sierra Leone's image, let's look at the drugs situation. Guinea, to a point, had to declare the then ambassador to Guinea, Alimami Bangua, persona non grata. This is related to the drugs issues. Yeah. And now we have as well the president's daughter allegedly having direct links to Yoslai Jekas, an international fugitive wanted for drugs-related crimes. With all these happenings in the country and the reaction of the government, going by all that we see, how stern do you think the government's reaction is to these drugs-related issues, especially in terms of setting an example to say we are a non-drug-friendly society?
Let me start with the cue that was given. I believe you hosted a program when I was with the Minister of Civic Education and Information. One thing I've often maintained, when things happen in Sierra Leone, it doesn't just affect the government, it affects us, the individual. Quite recently, a friend of mine who is a very senior economist here attended the World Economic Forum in Davos. And on his way from Switzerland to Washington, he was stopped. Because when he showed his Sierra Leonean passport, they asked him, where are you coming from? Are you coming from Sierra Leone? He said yes. He was stopped, checked. Unfortunately for him, he left his headphone behind. When he came back to collect the headphone, everybody in the flight was taken down, and they were rechecked again before he could move. That tells you how much serious it is for a country that is spending up to $7 million on presidential travels alone for a year out of Sierra Leone. In rebranding the country, what can we say as Sierra Leoneans? We've seen often times when other Sierra Leoneans are moving out all across the globe, they are having a problem. Myself, I'm going out of the country on Sunday. And before I went there, or before I'm going there now, I've gone through a lot of procedures, lots of things. So people will tell you that, oh, we are not a drug-friendly country. But what we've seen in quite recent months, not even years, in quite recent months, has led the international community to think otherwise of us. I would say that there is a lot of work to be done. Can you imagine a whole presidential spokesman, I would say, because he's the minister, trying to compare a fugitive to somebody that they say is causing mayhem in Sierra Leone in the form of Adebayo, that the Dutch government refused to give him, and this should happen? That is an unfortunate statement. And I believe that as a country, we need to do a lot more than just saying things. Let us have it done properly, because at the end of the day, it's Sierra Leoneans that will suffer. We have Sierra Leoneans vying for scholarship opportunities to go and study outside. But how will they go outside when the country's image is taunted? We cannot be the next Colombia or the next Cambodia or the next Venezuela of the world. Let us think of proactive measures to market our country. And I'll tell you, the marketing is not doing us any good at the moment.
We had the Attorney General and Minister of Justice on Wake Up Sierra Leone some time ago, and I asked him about the extradition request made by the Dutch government to Sierra Leone for your slyjackers.
Yeah.
And he said there are things they need to consider before they get to that point of making a decision. One of the things he mentioned is the things that he is wanted for in that country, do they constitute a crime in Sierra Leone? And what I put to him was, Sierra Leone officially is a non-drugs friendly society. So those crimes in Sierra Leone also actually constitute a crime.
Of course.
The question with him was why the delay in responding to the extradition request? And we could not clearly get the status of your slyjackers in Sierra Leone. Is he declared a wanted man? Is he free? There are too many unanswered questions around him, and also his alleged connection to the president's daughter, Agnes Biu. But what does this signal to other countries about Sierra Leone and our relationship with drugs-related matters?
So just recently, I think it was last week, the government, I think it was for Indonesia or one of these Asian countries, they stopped a whole container of tramadol that was said to be shipped to Sierra Leone. And around West Africa, of course, you made mention of that, the Conakry events that happened. And even the Liberia, because where I was just saying, he was saying in Tiun, the president's village. And of course, we know Tiun is very, very close to Bo, and Bo is like just one of the exit points to Liberia. So the other countries across West Africa, I would say for a certain fact that they will see us as not too serious. Of course, for a country like Guinea to issue a persona non grata to our ambassador, it tells a lot of story. And when you look at diplomatically, we are not setting a good precedent. So the questions are unanswered, but again, among us, let us look at our society. Our society is also feeling the pinch. I'll give you another example, not just. Look at when you go to Eastern, there is a very popular place called Jubitel. The owner of that place has been apprehended in Padenborough prison for some months now. And what was the crime that he was saying? That at the end of the day, that some of the monies that he was giving to officials for them to protect his place were drugs money. That he was selling kush, he was selling tramadol, he was selling everything that you could think of. And this was somebody that also came back to Sierra Leone from the US. He was also deported because of drugs-related issues. So you see that sometimes society would hail these people because for them, they are the saviors, the ones that give the cash, make the things happen, and make things to work friendly. So we have a lot of things to do. It is very much heart-rending. I will tell you, drugs is not just a Sierra Leonean thing. Drugs is not an African thing. For a fact, I've done my own studies and I've looked at it from this perspective that we don't have enough people to even buy these things. It's just like a transit point where it passes through and goes. We had the cocaine playing issue that came under the same SLPP regime, but just that it was not under President Julius Maada Bio, it was under another president. The cocaine saga died down. Nobody spoke about it anymore. This time around, we have a bigger picture. So it's like when one certain arm of government or a certain group of government comes to power, we're bound to have drug issues. So I don't know what we are going to do about that, but we need a lot of rebranding and cleansing of everything that has to do with Sierra Leone.
That's actually where we'll end the conversation tonight, though. Everybody's suggestions on what can be done going forward to fix things, but you need to understand the problem properly before you're able to arrive at a solution point.
And the issue we have is that the people in charge act as if they don't know what the problem is. They do know what the problem is. And if we say we don't know what the problem is, it means we're not making headways. Let me come to academia because that's my field of study. When you want to do research, we come up with what we call a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a guess. I can tell you that if I come to AYV, Fabian will want to speak to me. I can come here and you do not speak to me. That's another hypothesis all on its own. But if we put in together a hypothesis of this, it means that you cannot say you're ruling a people when you don't know how to address their issues. We are spending a lot of money. Look at the statistics that we're getting for ecotourism. Look at the statistics we're getting from other areas of government. But what are we doing to utilize these resources? Are we doing it judiciously? Even the taxes has gone up. Things are going up in the country, but is it reflective of what we do? The few people that have money are making money. What are they doing? How are they getting these monies? These are all questions that Sierra Leoneans need to ask. Sometimes I do not want to speak like a political person. I want to speak like a Sierra Leonean, but then under the guise of which I am an academician. Of course, when I speak, I should back up my defense with evidences. And of course, all the things I'm talking about, they are online, they are around. You can verify your information and make sure that what I'm saying is the truth. I'm lying. If I'm lying, you can stop me and say, yes, I'm lying. Then I will show you my sources, and then we can move forward with the conversation.
All right, thank you, Victor. We'll come right back to you. Let me come back to Imran Sillah. Imran, these people who have been arrested, it got to a point that Sierra Leone's name is there because they were arrested with Sierra Leonean documents. But what investigation has the government done? Were all those people who were arrested with Sierra Leonean passports on them actually Sierra Leoneans?
And we're talking about image, right? I mean, that's the overarching concern, not so, right? And then somehow you want us to limit this conversation to just the drugs and the cocaine, so unfair, and I think so disingenuous to this whole conversation, and that's the point I made earlier.
So let me reiterate. When I started the program, I informed we were very guided by our angle. So there are four things we're looking at.
The point is you don't
run the program. You respond to the questions.
You don't even own this program either. Your business is to encourage us to have a conversation around the issues.
In case you missed it during my intro, let me reiterate the 4 points we're looking at.
This is not a personal property of yours.
We're looking at the drug scandals.
It's for us to have a conversation and have the latitude and the freedom to be able to talk.
We're looking at the US visa misuse situation.
What's the point? In a context.
That's what we're looking at.
In a context of the image of Sierra Leone. And the image of Sierra Leone is not defined just by this incident you're referring to. I should also be able to add, President Julius Maada Bio has spent 7 years, just in case you didn't realize. I hope you understand. 7 years in power. I think it is fair to have a conversation in the context of 7 years, in addition to the issues you've mentioned. So you don't get
the topic of the conversation today.
So allow me to draw the next
The topic today is not to assess President Bio's 7 years in office.
It's about image.
Imran.
It's about image, my friend.
That's not the context of that's not the topic for today's edition.
The underlying concern is image. That image was started in April of 2018 up until now, and it continues until 2028.
And since April 2018, we've had series of conversations on these situations.
So allow the conversation to flow.
What we're looking at are these conversations at hand.
Don't pigeonhole this conversation. Right? I'm not going into that rabbit hole that you want me to get to. You know it's not me. It's never going to happen. You should understand that by now.
All right. I'll come right back to you.
What's your point?
I'll come right back to you.
What's your point?
Victor Moinina, let me come back to you on, let's move to the US visa situation. So with that, according to the US ambassador, he was just here last week on Wake Up Sierra Leone, Ambassador Brian Hunt.
I followed the interview.
So hold on, Victor. If you want to, Imran, you're at liberty too. You're not a prisoner here. So according to Imran, can we please have decorum in the studio so we can have a conversation? Victor Moinina, I was asking you, according the US ambassador, Brian Hunt, last week said 15% of Sierra Leoneans. Imran, can you please allow us to have decorum in the studio? Thank you.
Why? What's the point? What are you trying to prove tonight?
Imran. Let's have decorum.
What are you trying to prove tonight? That's the point. You need to answer those questions equally.
So I was saying, Victor Moinina, according to the US ambassador Brian Hunt, 15% of Sierra Leoneans who travel on tourist and business visas to the United States of America overstay.
Yep.
While 35% of those who travel on student visas remain in the United States illegally. Now, very recently, the youth envoy, Yulisa Amadou, was put on 6-month suspension for alleged visa fraud allegations. So how has the government contributed to some of these issues?
Let me go on the lighter note. Let us look at the celebrations of Sierra Leoneans at the moment that we are hoping to go to World Cup in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. It's not something that we can say that it's a secret. Most people would want to go to the USA under the guise of I'm going to support Leon Stars, and they'll never return again. And it's a situation whereby even myself, at some point in time, I got some visas to travel to different countries. Whenever you come back to Sierra Leone, they will look at you like maybe something is wrong with you, or maybe you are sick, or just like something it's totally absurd. And because of that mindset, most people will tell you, especially for those in some industries, maybe entertainment, maybe football, whatever they are doing, then Papa then will tell them, say, no, can't salon back. Because at the end of the day, you're not getting active for Canada in this country. I also have people who have recommended for programs that have gone out of Sierra Leone and never came back. And at some point, it caused a lot of problems for even my own organization. I had to tell them that, look, if you guys are going and not coming back, it means that we have to stop this program. I cannot be running an NGO and it seems like a Ponzi scheme. And this is the mindset of most people. Most of us that have diasporans, we have friends, we have brothers, we have sisters that have lived in the US, they went on political asylum. Some of them went there during the time of the war. They said that they had issues, people have died, people are now moving with FDG movements and everything. So the issue now that we have at hand is how can we help to stop this thing? Having such statistics is good. Mind you, when the US wants to issue out visa on a yearly basis, they have a certain quota that they give to every country. And if we are going to misuse this, it means that others that have genuine purposes cannot actually go for these programs. And you find out that for these selling of visas to people from high government personality, this is not a new event. People have done it before, but it is still tarnishing the image of our country. Most people will tell you that I did it because that person is a person in a position of trust. And that position that he has, I believe I can be able to get it. Let us even forget about this. Do you know people are now purchasing even service passports? They are not even working for ministries, departments, or agencies. They are buying it. And they have people that can process and procure these things for them to happen. So all of these are things that are affecting our countries. How do we stop this thing? We talked about stopping corruption. These are all benchmark and hinges of what corruption can do in a country. Everybody in Sierra Leone believes that when you live out of Sierra Leone, you are living a better life. And when you live here, it's like you're doomed. Sometimes they will tell you that when I send for you maybe $100 or $200, you're better off. But then when they go to see the reality, it's often translating something else. So we need a lot to do. For these issues, I will tell you, I would not be surprised that in the next coming year or 2 years, if we are successful in going for these international programs, even the cricketers, some of them are hoping now to go to World Cup in Australia. Most of their mindset they have, once I go there, I'm not coming back. So how do we build a country when everybody wants to leave? I've often said, it's even in lectures, that if the colonizers want to do us bad in Sierra Leone, they should just bring a ship at the Queen Elizabeth port. People will go there with their own chains and they will say they want to leave the country. And it is a very known fact because everybody thinks to live here is a hell. And how do you survive? It's because of the mindset. So we need to stop these things. Let us not put it in political context. Let us put it in a natural context. How can this affect us? We have Sierra Leoneans who are going there for genuine purposes, but some of them will not be granted visas, and it will become very difficult for us to leave.
Vickie Remoe, are you still there with us online? Vickie?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I'm just checking to make sure you're still there. Now, let's come to solution aspect. Every now and again, we hear of planned protests and violence here and there. At some point, even the president, in one of his official statements in his capacity as president, spoke about the fact that we have terrorists amongst us. And we've got the Anti-Terrorism Act now. We had a Lebanese national and some Sierra Leoneans who were arrested some time ago with bomb-making materials. The drugs-related situation, the terrorism and security threats. The US visa situation now, the ambassador clarified that we are not on any ban as a nation, but just he gave the statistic of Sierra Leoneans, the percentage of Sierra Leoneans misusing their visas. From your perspective as a professional public relations and digital media expert, what do you think Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans, both the government and the people, should do at this point to be able to change this narrative of Sierra Leone online and offline?
I don't particularly think that you can project something that isn't and make it a reality if it's false, right? So wetin I can say, usai smoke dey fire dey. So the reality is that for the last 2.5 decades, Sierra Leone has not had a positive image. We've had civil war, then we had poverty, then we have Ebola, then we have the mudslide, then we had COVID, then we had botched elections, then we had attempted coup, now we have drugs, right? So sequentially, if you look at that on locally or internationally, whether you're in Sierra Leone or outside of it, we don't have a lot of really fantastic stories that get projected in the country and outside. Within Sierra Leone, most of the media, what the media does cover a lot of is what government is doing. We follow our political leaders everywhere, and we create a huge gap about business, about arts, about culture, about entertainment, and we don't put the same amount of energy in projecting those stories. And so that's why these other stories tend to come up and then they stay there because media isn't doing its job also to diversify the kinds of stories it's telling. What can Sierra Leone do to improve its public image? It's simple. Sierra Leone at the national level needs to be better. Better in actual terms, meaning improving quality of life, et cetera, but also do a better job of projecting diverse images and stories about Sierra Leone. One of the unfortunate things that happens is that whenever things get contentious on the internet, people in government want to attack you with data. They want to, oh, but the numbers, the data. People can't eat data. They can't turn their house, they can't illuminate their house with data. And so if you keep responding to real stories with numbers, trying to invalidate people's lived experiences, it will never work. If we really want to improve the image of Sierra Leone, is that we have to make sure that we have a cohesive narrative that we're telling about Sierra Leone, meaning what's our brand? What do we want the world to know? Do we want the world to know that Sierra Leone has the best pepe in the world? Do we want the world to know that Sierra Leone has the best ecotourism destinations in the world? And then we have to put the fuel behind it to project that image, right? We can't just kind of always amplify the negative and expect it to change. On the government fronts, there are 4 people who produce most of the stories that get out about Sierra Leone: the president, his wife, the chief minister, and the mayor. They're the 4 most politically and digitally, they have the most reach than any other government agents. All of the government agencies combined don't do as much as those people do. But at the same time, the stories that they tell are always just about government, right? They need to also use those platforms to celebrate and amplify the positive things that Sierra Leoneans are doing, both at home and in the diaspora. But the bottom line is this: at the end of the day, if people continue to Google Sierra Leone and what they see is negativity, and you know, when we trend on AP, when we trend on Yahoo, when we trend on Google, if it's always negative or it's consistently negative, there's nothing we can do to change that image. There's nothing we can do. So if we want to be seen in a different light, we have to be that. If you don't want people to associate your country with drugs, don't make your country comfortable for people who traffic drugs.
But this still leaves us with, again, from your media perspective, the mainstream media and the online team. Now there's, you know, a huge number of bloggers in the country. The bloggers plus the mainstream media, which again, the mainstream media does have some of the media outlets. They have their presence online as well. Specifically, suggestions and guides. What can they do? How can they utilize their spaces to feed positivity about Sierra Leone's image?
So most of the people who are on Facebook or who are bloggers, they're not really reaching the international community. They're not. It's what's going on Facebook specifically, which is where the concentration is. All of that content, it's just for us. It doesn't really leave outside of Sierra Leone, right? So that content doesn't really affect our public image to foreigners. It affects our public image to the diaspora. It affects our public image to ourselves. Where it really matters is outside of social media platforms, meaning search engines, right? That's where you have your keywords. That's where people go for information. And yes, like I think it's Director Jallo is saying about tourism salon. they've done they've done a really great job digitally, because 18 months ago, if you Googled Sierra Leone, no Sierra Leonean websites were ranking in the top pages on Google. Now, Tourism Salon is on the first page, which is because they've done a lot to improve their SEO. They've done a lot to basically create and provide the content necessary to have their own stories be projected along with all the NGO content that's usually there. So I feel like we really place, when you're in Sierra Leone, people tend to place a lot of emphasis on what the bloggers are doing, but that's really not leaving our social, Facebook is a social network. So we're all connected to each other, so we see that on social media, but the internet is a much bigger place. And outside of social media, the digital footprint about Sierra Leone, about Sierra Leoneans, is just not there. There's a huge gap. Most of the people in Sierra Leone who are leaders in Sierra Leone, you can't even find their bios online. Most of the businesses in Sierra Leone, most of like the great things that actually happen in Sierra Leone, there really isn't enough digital footprint out there on the digital web for people to discover, which is why I've made it my mission to continue to make Sierra Leone famous and to amplify Sierra Leoneans wherever they may be. As long as they're excellent, we amplify it. And people within Sierra Leone as well, because this is how you change the narrative. As a single individual, I reach more than 5 million people every month online. My website, sweetsalon.com, gets 500,000 visits every single year. That's real power. And so if the government and other people want to really project a positive image of Sierra Leone, it's there, it's possible. We have the stories, we have the people. I just put out a list of 27 magnificent women leaders in business and public service that everybody should be sharing and projecting, because those are the stories that will translate into real public laundering of Sierra Leone's image. So the work is out there to be done, and I want to invite and challenge government and people who are in the digital media space to continue to diversify the content. Yes, it's always interesting to do the Moonlight Challenge and to find out, another leak of something, etc. But really, you have to go outside of that. There's so much happening in Sierra Leone. Be champions and ambassadors for the Sierra Leonean brand. Right now, I'm representing the Sierra Leonean brand just by the choice of what I'm wearing. I'm wearing a jacket designed by a Sierra Leonean American. I'm wearing a Sierra Leonean artist jacket. This is Drizzleix brand. And I'm projecting that to the world. Why? Because I'm very intentional about representing Sierra Leone positively wherever I go. And I want to invite everybody, government or not, to just always think Sierra Leonean, put Sierra Leone first. And no matter what the main story is, the headline, to remember that we are a great people, and our real resource, that's our natural resource, that's our gem, is not the resources that are underneath the earth, but our people. It's people like Vivian, it's people like me, and it's all of you who are watching here today. So that's my story, and that's what I want everybody to take from this conversation.
Vickie, I couldn't help but chuckle when you mentioned the Moonlight Challenge. That sort of had to bring the conflict into the conversation for me. But another thing you would you would get from people who are in the business of information dissemination, whether it's mainstream media or bloggers, one thing they would share or highlight is every time you share sort of like a good news or profile an individual, good stories, good news, it sort of doesn't get the traction. When it's bad news, when it's negativity, that's what actually spreads like wildfire. Do you subscribe to this? Being that you're one of the people
honestly, I can say to you, that's not been my personal.
More of the good things about Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans.
It's not been my personal. So take, for example, Wodemaya, who is a Ghanaian content creator who travels across the continent. Wodemaya goes to different countries and he produces videos. All of his videos are positive. they all trend. So this narrative that, if it's not negative, people aren't paying attention. Part of the problem is that the content creators themselves, they love the salacious, the saucy, and the gossip. So when it's negative, they put a little bit more creativity into how they present it, versus when it's positive, they're just like, oh, this is so nice, it's so good. But when it's negative, they're like, Jama, you don't see. And so the way that they present it when it's negative is what brings people in. They need to bring that vibe and that style that makes it very intriguing into the positive presentation. I have everything that I've done and everything that I've built with regards to the media in Sierra Leone. It's been on positivity. It's been very, very positive. People in the diaspora are starving for positive stories about Sierra Leone. Look at what's going on right now. Match Pass season across social media. Everything right now is about school pride. It's about music. It's about marching bands. For me, that's incredible. That's positive and it's trending. So I don't buy into the narrative that it has to be negative for it to trend. I think it has to be of value. It has to be meaningful. It has to be fascinating. It has to make sense. And yes, I also like to see the Ariobo, they go fend the witch pots from time to time. For me, that's all culture and it's entertainment. But at the same time, we can't forget that we also need to tell really, really serious stories that document Sierra Leone life. This is what I'm saying. I don't want one narrative. I want the Ariobo and the business news, because all of that is an accurate representation of who we are. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us different. And I want us to embrace that about ourselves. Sierra Leone is not a collection of data points and pillars and this and that. It really is not. And it's never going to be. We are dynamic and we are our best when we actually look within and we amplify the things about ourselves that make us special. I'm really excited to hear that they're on the verge of bringing Lantern back, because the past couple years, na America, I don't get for go, na America, they go dance Lantern. I'll be doing that again this year. But we're really special people, and I think that sometimes we forget that because we get stuck on the political and we forget the national, I want us as Sierra Leoneans to really forget about politics, even though it's a part of our lives. But when it comes to Sierra Leone, to think more about this. Well, it's over this side. To think more about that. And I always say, wherever I see green, whites, and blue, whether na government or whether na APC, SLPP, na America, na China, as long as green, whites, and blue did it and it's positive, I don't need for sabi you. I don't need for let you. You don't need nothing. As long as what you're doing is positive representation of Sierra Leone online, I'm going to amplify it, I'm going to share it, I'm going to lean in for it. And that's what I invite everybody who's interested and concerned about Sierra Leone's image to do. Because the way the algorithm works is very simple. If every time you go on the internet, you lean in for the negativity, you're telling the AI that are trying to predict your behavior that you want negativity. So every time you log in, they're going to show you what you're consistently training the algorithms to do, to give you negativity. When I come online, I don't see negativity. When I come online, the algorithm gives me positivity. It gives me news. It gives me Sierra Leonean excellence. So that's what I consume. And that's why wherever I go in the world, I can rep Sierra Leone. I can hold my head up high. And even this drugs business, I'm not offended though, because I'm like, that is not what defines me as a Sierra Leonean. Do you understand what I mean? I know who I am. I know where I'm from, and I know what our values are. And no amount of cocaine, no amount of ambassadors sell cocaine, or somebody's in a church or somewhere island, cocaine is going to distort my image, which is positive about Sierra Leone. We're going to make Sierra Leone famous for the right reasons. Whether government does it or not, we will continue to do that.
Very much, Vickie Remoe. Please continue to stay with us. Let me come to you, Victor Moinina, Doctor. You understand the problems and how it's affecting Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans locally and internationally. Proffer solutions. What do you think Sierra Leoneans should do And what do you think the government should do to get us out of this current narrative?
For the government, I think we should start with the mandate. The government should not forget the mandate that they have. One thing I've often said about governance is not a one shop where everything can be done at once. Governance is continuity. Governance is procedure. Governance is making sure that service delivery is exemplified and is made possible for everyone. So I think the government should be able to, first of all, make sure that Sierra Leoneans be proud of the fact that we are Sierra Leoneans. We don't need to be frightened by the fact that maybe we have an image somewhere that is been negative, we have issues going on. Let me tell you for a fact, everywhere in the world, every country in the world have a problem. But what they tend to project to other people, do people think that Sierra Leone is the first country in West Africa to have drugs issue? Even the Guinea that is close to us, they had issues of drugs. But how did they change the narrative? Is when the government ensure that it comes for them. For Sierra Leoneans, we should often note that, let me say this in a local parlance, now once Allah will get. If we all sit down, make the country well, now we all get for suffer. We know what's happen where we go as refugee. Not of our place, Gambia and I. We know how they treat we. We go Guinea, we know how they treat we. And one thing I've often said, let me borrow the words of a good friend of mine, Dr. Charles Sillah. He says that no matter what happens, Sierra Leone is going to be forever. It's going to be for eternity. And if we decide not to make it better for us now, I don't think we're going to get it anytime soon. And mind you, the leadership that we have is a reflection of us, the people. If we as the people are very serious and very much ready to change our narrative, I believe Sierra Leone is going to be a better place for us.
Sierra Leoneans, what can we do? Because especially with the U.S. situation, the misuse of U.S. visas, this, even though there could be government's contribution to that, but it boils down to the decision of those Sierra Leoneans who were given the visas, who made the choice to misuse the visas. On the citizens' perspective, what can Sierra Leoneans do?
The citizens should, you know, the interesting thing about this whole conversation, the only time a Sierra Leonean know that there is no place like home is when they are going to be deported or when they have an issue in another country. That is the time you know that there is no place like home. But if you went to US for a program and your stay has been ended, or maybe you couldn't get an extension, please come back home. There are other people that want to go and do something else. But if we don't do that, and it all comes down to the mindset of us, the people. Most families will tell you, now contribute to all you go yonder. Where you go, they not can put the family by disgrace. And these things continue to linger on. So as a country, we have to change our mindset, we have to change the way we do things, and we have to change everything that will make us better Sierra Leoneans for all.
Thank you very much. Let's come back to Imran, Sillah. You've had the contributions and submissions of Vickie, Remoe, of Dr. Moinina. What part of these recommendations or submissions do you think can be adopted?
Well, I think, to be honest, you have destroyed my flow and the program in itself. I'm sure you're happy and excited, and you feel that this is a program you own. AYV is now a personal thing for Phoebe and Swale, and you get to determine the sort of way we interject and the things we say in this conversation. Look, I have been here through Samuel Wise. I have been here to John Conte and others before you. I have never had this sort of rejection in terms of having a conversation.
And I've also been here with you.
And this sort of rejection in a conversation, right, that has to do with national issues. You're talking about the image of Sierra Leone. And somehow, Phoebe and Swale, now no more they determine which are this image on the parameters through which we're supposed to discuss this image. It is sad and unfortunate. I hope you understand. This is not what a moderator should be doing. Go back, have some reflection, do some soul searching. Come back again next week when you're doing AYV on Sunday. I might not be here, it might be some of the guests. Right? Come back and talk to them and understand that you do not own any conversation. It's not because you're the moderator that means this is not Phoebe and Swale in personality. Now, if I can determine now what you say, what this man for, I mean, who does that? I mean, any sane and sober person coming into any conversation for public consumption cannot behave the way you have behaved. And now you're pretending as if to say nothing has happened. I hope you understand. You want to characterize this thing now. That where would they come here now? It's about Imran, Sillah, and the sort of. I mean, this is not how you do it. Be professional at least. You're talking about the image of Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much for your consultancy services, Imran, on my professional
Who
conduct.
does that?
Now let's focus on the salary you receive and speaking to the people of Sierra Leone.
No, but you have not allowed me.
So the
not
conversation
talk about the
we're having, all the responses that you've had from Vickie, Remoe, Dr.
I came here willing and ready to have a conversation.
What is your response on that from the government's perspective?
I came here willing and ready to have a conversation. Talk about my salary. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here at all to represent government. That was why I came in the first place. So I don't need you to tell me that.
Not to offer me consultancy, but to speak for the government.
So allow people the freedom and the latitude to be able to have this conversation. Because what we have done since the start of this program is to mischaracterize, right, this whole conversation.
How was it mischaracterized?
You want to talk about the image, yeah? But then the image is being defined as being defined by Phoebe and Swale. The image has to do with Almami Bangura, the former ambassador. The image has to do with a certain individual for which there is an extradition request. The image has to do with job. It is all of those. And I said, simple from the start, that image is built over a period and not defined by one singular incident and instance. It's as simple as that. That's the point I was looking to take off from. But no, you shut it down because you had your own plan, you had your own mindset, you had your own thinking, and you were just happy to move on with it. And somehow, right, in the middle of the conversation, or more than halfway in the conversation now, you're coming to ask for reactions from poor soul. Sit out there. Everybody else getting freedom and the latitude for saying to the people say. Yeah, but Imran, Sillah. No, and then you want me now to interject. We have mischaracterized this conversation. So when you talk about visa is 35% and 15% as the data suggests, or what is government doing? And somehow you connect it to other things, right, as it relates to government. It is so unfair, 15%. What I would have loved to see the American ambassador do was to give a disaggregation of that 15%.
To break it down.
In terms of how many actually belong to just ordinary citizens when they do their applications there. Yep. In terms of the 35%, how many just belong to ordinary citizens when they do their applications there, for students there, where they go and not come back. Yeah, so those are the things.
But has government engaged him?
So again, you need to be able to follow the news also. Not necessarily come here and determine what you want.
She makes the news.
No. not necessarily come to AYV and determine what those conversations should look like. Because Honorable Timothy Kaba, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, was on 98.1, having a 1.5-hour conversation on his meeting with the ambassador, but then on other issues as it relates to his ministry. The American ambassador too, I think, came here, but was also on 98.1, having all of these conversations. So, I mean, so much has happened over this period, yeah, that you're supposed for, we should be able to take the time, just, go into these issues. How does it connect? How does one connect to the other? There's an extradition request, yes. What are the laws as provided for? Act number 6 of 1991 Constitution, as it relates to extradition.
As we speak, what's the status of that extradition request?
I know you're asking for the status. Let us talk about the law first before you come to the... I know it's not your obsession, Andy. That's the news for you. I hope you understand. That's where you're going to be juicy too. I'm not going to allow you. Let us come back to what Act number 6 of 1991 Constitution states. Yeah? Look, it states that there are clear provisions under which an extradition is going to be accepted and met as it relates to every other country. It is not just automatic. It does not just happen instantly at an instant because there's an extradition request. Therefore, suddenly that extradition is granted this individual. The last, in one of the press conferences that the Inspector General came to, it was public knowledge that the security sector did indicate that they were looking for this individual. They said they were looking. They even further went on to say, anybody will get any information, any intelligence, or anything where they lead to this individual for be brought in. They said they would appreciate that and let the public contact them. I hope you understand. That was known, that was made public at a press conference, in one of our press conferences. And so from that point, I have not heard back from the security sector, the Inspector General, as it relates to that matter. So, these are things we have to probably look at critically, one from the other, dissect it. I don't necessarily see the connection between visa potentially and its restriction, for which the American ambassador was on AYV and 98.1 clearly stating the position. It's nothing to do with government, but yes, they would like to see I mean, what could government do? It's also about what they could also do as, as an institution, the American embassy, in terms of who they grant visas and the kind of due diligence that they do. I hope you understand, is issuing out those visas from individual to individual. And so there are a lot of things. It's not just one size fits all, that I should come now, Imran, Sillah, you can't subject me to the kind of characterization, the kind of mindset where you get. That's petty.
So let's talk about the extradition
down, they not
request.
Just get a proper conversation. Who can
What's the current status of that extradition request by the Dutch government?
Look, extradition request has to be consistent with the 1991 Constitution Act number 6. It has to be looked at. It has to be evaluated. We know that in every country, when you're asking for an individual to be extradited, you also now have to bring in the evidence. The same for the UK, the same for the US, the same for every other Western country. You have to now bring it in because they now have to put that through, right, their own national test.
Did the Dutch government fail to provide that evidence to the government of Sierra Leone attached to their extradition request? You're saying you need to submit evidence, so I'm asking, did the Dutch government fail to attach that?
So you're missing the point. We're talking about what the law makes provision for.
Yeah, but
I'm not talking about what has been
specific to the
submitted.
Dutch government's extradition request. So the law makes provision, but in this context, have they submitted all the needed information to the government of Sierra Leone?
Those are two separate things. They have submitted an extradition request.
Did they submit to the government all the necessary information you need?
Acknowledged by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Yeah? Alpha CC did acknowledge that he has received. If there are any further conversations that they need to have, it's going to happen between Alpha CC, the Attorney General, and his counterparts. Yeah? For and on behalf of the Dutch government. If they need any further information that they need to be able to come to those conclusions and make that decision, then that should be a direct conversation between Alpha CC, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and his counterparts in Holland. So, and once those conversations happen, it is not every step of the way in those conversations that somebody is going to come to the public and say, this is not talking about today. That sounds professional. That's not how diplomacy works.
So a few weeks ago, we had the Attorney General and Minister of Justice in the studio. And what he said was, what they look at is to ensure that, first of all, the crimes that the individual has been alleged of committing in that country should constitute a crime in this country, Sierra Leone. And what was established was drugs-related crimes in Sierra Leone are also a crime. So he was saying they need time to go through the request, processes, and make a decision. But that was over 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. Are you aware of what the current status of that is? What has changed over the last few weeks?
So he said it in a short form. I have said it in the long form.
Yeah, but that was said about 2-3 weeks ago. So what's the update on that? What's new on that case?
Be assured, and I'd want the public to also note this, be assured, if there is any new information as it relates to that extradition request for a Dutch individual who is believed to be within this jurisdiction, and that when I say we, I mean the Sierra Leonean police is still looking for, right, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice will come back to the public to inform and state categorically what those updates are and what the position is and how, as a ministry, he moves forward for and on behalf of government. Yeah, so I mean, the point I would like to make on a final note before probably you both interject and come in, I think I feel hard done by tonight, to be honest. Yeah, I come in being very organic, being me, yeah? Wanting to have a conversation around issues as I see them, yeah. And I feel I have not been given the chance and the freedom today for whatever reason. And it's not, I don't take it personal. I'm not living here, I go now, I go fit for sleep. I'm going to sleep peacefully. But then I think as it relates to government, yeah, if we want to characterize any government, whether it be this, whether it be a subsequent one, whether it be the one before, you do it over a period. And I am saying, in fairness to this government has been around for almost 7 years now. Yeah? We should be able to situate this conversation, given all of the issues mentioned. Yeah? Granted, we can have a conversation around all of those issues mentioned, but let us situate this conversation in a context of 7 years and what this image has looked like. So yes, we have these issues that have come up, and no government will be happy, no country will be happy to talk about drugs and all of those things. Yeah, but ultimately it's about what you do. But don't forget that towards the back end of last year, we were talking about image. We're talking about the image of Sierra Leone. Towards the back end of last year, His Excellency the President went to Vienna for a donor conference and got how much? $800 million US. Never in the history of this country, any president don't go inside and go get $800 million US. In 2 months, that $800 million US was $1 billion US in terms of commitment to agriculture and, food, and energy in this country. Here we have it, as recent as last week. Talk about image. For the first time in the history of this country, certainly since independence, surely since the introduction of multi-party politics in 1996 in this country, we were talking about the reduction in rice for more than 250,000 pounds. Well, I mean, things are happening. So if you want to talk about the good, the bad, right, and what you consider to be the challenges, let it be in a mix. That is all I'm saying. Let it be in a mix. Let us have all of those conversations. Don't pigeonhole a conversation. That's not your responsibility as a moderator. That's the point I'm coming back to.
As part of the putting all in the mix, I asked you earlier, those people who were arrested with drugs-related issues, it became tagged to Sierra Leone because they had Sierra Leonean documents. Has the government done any investigation to ascertain whether all those people who were arrested with drugs-related, not just Guinea, there are issues in Senegal, in Liberia, in Guinea, I'm saying all these issues. Has there been any investigations conducted by the government to ascertain whether all those people are actual Sierra Leoneans?
So we know that, as a matter of fact, when a citizen is being held in another country, naturally, that security apparatus will contact the embassy and let them know as a matter of protocol. The embassy would now follow up to find out what the issue is, what those issues are. But that those individuals are subjected to the national laws of those countries. I hope you understand. The Sierra Leonean embassy or the closest embassy can make a representation if they feel that this individual has been advantaged in any way. They can make a representation, or they can provide whatever support they can from time to time. Now, for those individuals, apart from Guinea, Conakry, those respective embassies would definitely be in touch to find out. But then we continue to urge our citizens across the globe to respect national laws and make sure we do nothing as against the laws of this country as it relates to Guinea, Conakry, more specifically. When the investigation was instituted, we did say, right, as a matter of fact, that we were helping the Guinean authorities because 2 individuals were arrested, apparently. We're helping the Guinean authorities, assisting them in their investigation, and that we had a zero tolerance for transnational crime. You raised the point, and the ambassador, the US ambassador to Sierra Leone did say, I think it was on 98.1, if I did get him correctly, he did say, look, every country has got their own issues and challenges. That was coming from the US ambassador, not to me talk about Bambai. He did say every country, and that includes the United States of America, they all have their own issues and challenges, all. But that countries are being judged and determined based on the reactions you get. I hope you understand. And I think it is fair to also suggest and say, right, in that mix, that we have seen His Excellency the President done several changes to show that, number one, he has a zero tolerance policy and approach towards any individual. I mean, you bring people to government and give them positions of trust, not really determine they have to. Also, and the mindset, you hope that they follow your vision and aspiration. Not so? That is why in every government since 1996 to now, heads of state have done several changes and cabinet reshuffles over a period. Do an aggregate, a sum total from Tijan Kaba to Anes Baikoma to this one up until now, and there is more to come between now and 2028 until he leaves office.
So as you put that, let's tie your most recent submission a few seconds ago to some of the conversations we've had, especially on this US visa situation. The youth envoy, Amadou Yulisa, is currently on a 6-month suspension for alleged visa fraud issues emerging here and there. And how do you now unconnect some of these issues to what the ambassador had mentioned about the misuse of visa? Again, the US ambassador situation is just one country. Misuse of US visas, and now that even diplomats would now be going through an interview to get visas to attend official functions in the United States of America. You were earlier on asking, why do we connect this to the government?
Did the ambassador say diplomats would be having an interview now? He did not. I did not hear him on 98.1. Except if you want to talk to talk or Sabina Publico, bring a Canada, you talk Dandy. Did you hear him?
Imran, you're not responding to the question.
No. You
were asking us earlier, how do we connect the visa situation to that?
Did you not just say that diplomats will now be having interviews? Not to Dando Nayeri. Did I hear anything different? Where did he make that statement? I'm
he
asking
mentioned that if the diplomats are not going on official government functions, they would now have to go through interviews.
If they are not going
Imran, you're not responding to the questions.
If diplomats are not going on official programs, you just said even when it has to do with official programs. Clear you wasn't correct, oh? Don't say things the ambassador did not say, oh. I followed him on 19.1. He did not say so.
The messages.
When diplomats go on private functions, naturally they have to go for visa. They have to go for visa interviews. That is not a new thing, oh. It has never been a new thing. Never ever. Every diplomat, every minister, every government minister, every deputy minister, every government official who goes on a private visit to the United States of America, they do not go with their diplomatic passport, right? They go as private citizens and they go for interviews. And when did that become a new thing? What are you trying to connect it to? A lot of girl facts and figures and right to don't do it.
Since all of these situations started, these scandals here and there, what has the government done about them?
What scandals again are you talking about?
Scandals, I said. Since all these scandals, what has the government done?
I have talked about Guinea. Now bear me witness. Yeah. I have also talked about other individuals in other countries for which it is believed they have been arrested allegedly on drug-related charges. Have I not?
Yes.
We mentioned the individual who is believed to be a Dutch national and for which there is extradition request, right? That also I have talked about. You've also asked specific question as it relates to the Attorney General and whether there's any new information to give. I have answered that. Is there anything new you wish to add and ask a question about that we have not touched on? I'm not in your mind though, you ask the question.
Okay, we're heading over to get submission from the audience in our studio. Let's hear their contribution. We have journalism students in the studio from Limpopo University of Creative Technology. Good evening, yes, let's hear your contributions to the conversation. Questions and quick pointers, you've got a few minutes on this.
Good evening, Phoebe, and it's been very sparkling here as well through our Facebook messages and our inbox. And of course, a lot of people are raising concerns why the government spokesperson is really angry tonight. But let's take some of the messages. And of course, Cisse says, why is our country so exposed to drug smuggling? Be reminded that President Bio promised to clean the image of the country before governance. And of course, Lamin Denke says, there must be a valid reason to protect our country's image. We only have one Sierra Leone. We should be careful of what gets amplified. And Mustafa Abdul Denke says, our sovereign reputation status as a country have been under serious attack for several years. Therefore, our leadership structure must be critical and crucial in terms of having political will that we clean the image of our country. And Mata Eronobi says, how is tourism industry managing with the current challenges of electricity for the investors across the country? For the Mustafa Toure says, Sierra Leone has a good image in the eyes of government, which can be very deceptive in my view. Swissman says, if the U.S. Embassy cannot give a succinct data on the number of Americans living in Sierra Leone, why should America hold Sierra Leone responsible for the overstaying in the United States? And of course, Joseph Josiah says, government should find ways to fix the problem, not to become outrageous or very offensive. And Mahatma says, you are right, Vickie. Let's make Sierra Leone proud. Let's think about Sierra Leone first. Usman T. Mansare says, I love Sierra Leone, but government needs to fix the problems for the citizens of the country. And the last message that we can take is coming from Francis T.Y. Kroma. He says, if drug lords feel safe in Sierra Leone, what do we think is the reason? Does it mean that our security sector is porous? Those are the messages that we can take for today. And back to you, Fabian.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Nyakemomo, for reading out those messages. And I'll come back to the guests in the studio for your response to those messages. Imran?
So yes, there are two questions from the audience. One has to do with rebranding the image of Sierra Leone, and the second lady from Lincoln Wing was talking about that she believes that government needs to stand up in the fight against corruption and take decisive actions, right? More or less. Now, I think a lot has been done, right? Again, in 7 years in the fight against corruption. And there's a reason why we continue to pass several MCC scorecard year on year. Not very many people might like to hear this, but that's the fact. I mean, those scorecard was not determined by us. We played no part in them. They were produced and submitted to the government of Sierra Leone, and the head of state is the president. Every year, that scorecard is handed over to him.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Before I finish?
Yes.
Now, you talk about passing the MCC scorecard. $480 million
Absolutely.
was supposed to be given for electricity project. It's not forthcoming. So what's the solution to that?
Again, good question. We have to go back to what the US ambassador said, on 98.1, because I followed him with passion. And in addition to that, I did listen with profit. He did say, and I'm quoting him now, that even before the new administration, it was indicated that there is a transitional period for the project in itself, in terms of project design, blah, 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 those preliminary phase, and that was going to take anything between 12 to 18 months back then. And from what he said on 98.1, he gave a clear indication that we were still in that phase, that 12 to 18 months phase, and once we end that phase and all of those preliminary work was completed, then we would move into the actual implementation. And the implementation was going to last for about 5 years, no more, no less. That was what he said, going by what the American ambassador said on 98.1. And I can confirm that from my own source, because I talked to people at the leadership at the energy sector, and that includes Dr. Kande Kola-Yomkela, Nuni, Deputy Minister 1, and so on and so forth. So that is still on course. I mean, going by all accounts, both from government and from the US government. And so, coming back to your question, we continue to do our best in the fight against corruption, and we see several reports, international reports, being presented and made public, which shows that we're doing the best that we can, given the circumstance, and that is why we continue to pass the fight against corruption, and we will continue to do more. That's a commitment I'm going to give. We instituted some time ago an emergency in the fight against Kush. We know that a team was set up by the president, and that team is still working. My colleague Abubakar Josise is part of that team, and from time to time I get to talk to him to understand exactly what is happening and how much work is being done, and how much resources has been put into it. Government's commitment is real in terms of its financial commitment, and they continue to provide those resources for the team to be able to do their job. From the text messages that came in, somebody was suggesting, well, say quite a few, not just one, that which suggested that I was angry. Imran Sillah fix. Anger is not something you associate with Imran Sillah. Passion and frustration, yes. In this particular instance, frustration. I feel very much frustrated from the outset. I feel a lot better now. I've drank half a bottle of water, and so somehow, I have been given the opportunity to say exactly what I want to say in the true spirit of AYV and in the true spirit of these conversations. But that's about it. But coming back to the broader point, look on all of the issues raised and mentioned here, which we've talked about. Again, I think we continue on behalf of the president and his government. We continue to give those commitments that we have a zero tolerance on transnational crimes. We are not going to tolerate it. In Phoebe's intro, she mentioned that there was an interception, well, which shows at least that something is working. It's not all it's not all plain sail. It's not like everything comes in and goes to some other place. Interceptions are happening. The thing is, we don't get to hear about those interceptions, because once one goes through the security, whatever, and is not being caught and is found somewhere else, it comes back to us. But there is a lot of work that is being done. I have witnessed several times, on the instructions of President Julius Maada Bio, several times, the burning of huge consignments at Kisi. Several times, not once, not twice, not 3 times. I'm telling you, by my own account, as an individual, which I have witnessed on the instructions of President Bill, I have witnessed more than 10 of those burnings. We were talking about the sum total runs into billions of dollars. Right? But we continue to do our best in making sure that Sierra Leone does not become a safe haven for transnational crimes, and we'll continue to stop them. At any given opportunity, if we find those drugs here, we'll make sure that we seize them. Right? Those individuals will make sure that we'll prosecute them, and we'll destroy the total value of those, the actual value of those drugs, which we have done in the past.
Before I go to the other guests for their closing curtsies, Imran, before all these situations occurred, the president has made quite a number of travels, and the complaints that citizens and people make about his trips, government comes back to say he's traveling to attract direct foreign investors and also to launder the country's image. Now that the image of the country has been stained with all these scandals, should citizens expect more travel trips by the president to launder the image further?
So again, you know, no country is defined by one single incident. That's the point I was making earlier. No country. Not even in our individual lives. You must not make mistakes in your life at one point in time, whether it be primary, secondary school, or tertiary college, up until now.
As a matter of fact, we make mistakes every day.
So are you being defined by that one single incident that happened that somehow you feel if you were to go back and you have the opportunity, you could do things differently? No. I mean, the point I'm making is this. His Excellency the President will continue to travel. I mentioned in some of the conversations here tonight that the President went to Vienna, right, for a roundtable conference to be able to raise money. He came back with $800 million US. 2 months after, that $800 million US became $1 billion US in terms of commitment for energy and food security. He just came back from Barbados, and it was again to be able to get the right partnership, right, for the energy sector. He went to Nigeria before that. Look, nobody is going to tell me, and for those of us who've traveled there, I mean, say don't travel small, right? I can call that levity yeah.
We all know
No, I guess who does it for pleasure?
No word.
I've been to places where ordinarily, look, I keep giving this example. You probably have been to China, I'm told. I don't know. I was given an opportunity to go to China in the early parts, right, of President Julius Maada in his first term. 12 hours now plane from Ethiopia to China. I did not fancy it.
Very long distance.
I tell them, say me not get nothing for go do day. The point I'm making is this. Who travels for fun to a country like Barbados?
Yeah.
Who travels for fun to a country like Australia, Vienna, Switzerland? Who does that? Nobody. And very recently, interesting, they don't add Dr. Kande Koleum Kenai in the number of travels. So they say they travel, no more this, that. Look, for all of his international jobs, before he came back to Sierra Leone, that man has traveled to 100 countries around the world. 100. In his youthful and more energetic days, he's done 100 countries around the world. Not many Sierra Leoneans can claim to have traveled 100 countries, right, in this day and age. But he comes back, he's doing this job for Mama Salon, right, with all his as directed by His Excellency the President, right, on his instructions, because he's the Minister for Energy. He's doing all of these travels, and somehow he's been lumped in together now, the President, and say, enjoy the fly no more than the job. Who does that for fun? Nobody. His Excellency the President will continue to make those travels to be able to attract the right investment. Yeah. Sierra Leone is never and will never be defined by one singular incident. It is never going to happen. Those incidents are things we do not wish upon ourselves. No government would wish the sort of issues upon themselves, right? Is how you react to them. That is what ultimately matters, and I think that we have done sufficiently well to be able to suggest that we have a zero tolerance policy and approach, in transnational crimes, and that is going to remain our posture until the end of the second term of President Julius Maada. We remain committed to this fight. We have a zero tolerance policy, and we will continue to pursue that direction, right, for the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much, Mohamed Jallo.
Yes.
What would be your parting curtsies? There have been some suggestions by Vickie Remoe and Dr. Moinina by your side there, and even the messages from the live audience and the Facebook viewers.
Yeah. So
what are you taking from it?
No, first of all, I want to state that for us in the tourism sector, we focus on the positive. The positive is what we focus on, and sharing data is nothing wrong. You have to measure your progress, you have to identify your challenges, and that helps you to be able to improve. And for us, again, in our sector, what we realize is that we have Sierra Leone has an image. There's a perception. We have a slogan called Explore Freedom. That's our slogan, Explore Freedom, and that reflects the resilience of the people of Sierra Leone, that reflects the rights that people have, how people feel comfortable when they visit this country. And what we are known for is our beautiful beaches, it's all the beautiful things that we are known for. Sometimes we take our country for granted. People out there, when you talk to them, they have admiration for this country. People want to visit, they're enthusiastic, they want to come here. I'll give you an example. Just this year, between 27 and 28th of April, we have 2 cruise ships that are coming here. 2 cruise ships for about 200 people. Had it been that the image is that bad, I don't think they will be coming. We hosted the Budapest, and next year we're having close to 2,000 people, the Budapest with Makorali, that are coming in as well. And not only that, we just hosted the Women in Tourism Congress. We brought about, we have 500 people under one roof, and 18, we have people from 18 countries that visited this, that participated in the conference. So there are so many things that are good in this country, and I think as Sierra Leoneans, for us in the industry, we want to see more positive news, more positive posts, so that Sierra Leone out there can have people can have a better perception about Sierra Leone. There is so much in the pipeline. And somebody asked a question about energy. When it comes to energy, definitely the tourism sector thrives on energy. You need the ACs to come on and all of that. You know, there has been challenge many years back. But of course, there have been improvements. Over the years, there was no electricity at Long Beach. Now there is electricity. Yes, sometimes there is intermittent power supply, but it is there. So we hope for more to happen so that we can increase on the energy supply.
Yes, Dr. Marina.
I think everything has been said. I am just going to buttress that all is not lost. As a country, we could still make some efforts and we could still make some corrections. As I said in one of my programs, Salone, we get beaucoup for do. I don't think so we don't get leader it. It's Alexander Edmana will get first at the country. When we have a leader, even if it's just a term, they would make corrections. Let me compare Sierra Leone with other countries around us. Guinea, under military regime, doing very well. They now have a national airline, construction of roads, hospitals, many things are going very well. Burkina Faso, very close to us as well, doing fantastically well. And other countries. So what is the issue with us? It seems as if we are moving in cycles. We could have some progress today, tomorrow we're going backward like 5 steps. If you want your country to grow, you should first of all empower the people to look at things done properly and let them have a mindset. I often say this, our society is broken because our families are broken. The level of laxity and levity that we treat some issues within this country is very serious. Anything that concerns Sierra Leone concerns you and I. We should take the bold step and we should forget about it. And finally, before I leave, as always, I want to say thank you very much for AYV having me here. To be honest with you, leaving my busy schedule on Sundays are very, very tight. But I want to thank you all, and I believe that we will not get tired of speaking. We'll always speak for the truth. Because like how Emerson says, two, you not get false name, you not get surname. Two, not two, I see put and I say get for the. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Moindina. And we go on Zoom to Vickie Remoe. Vickie, are you still there with us?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that have emerged about, I remember one of the conferences I attended. I think it was Elevate Africa, and the conversation was, we tend to post the negative things about the country, but some of the negativities that are posted has led in some instances to solutions. Take, for example, the PCMH situation where Dr. Geraldine Randall had posted something. It led to Sick Pekin project and Strasser, the footballer, to make a donation of a generator. Yeah. With what's happening, what do you think Sierra Leoneans should post about Sierra Leone? Is it just the good? Is it the bad or the ugly? Is it all the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Na collabo.
I don't think we should try to tell people, ordinary citizens, that somehow it's their job to post any one thing, right? At the end of the day, citizen journalism is a beautiful thing. It's important because it gives us kind of an insight into everyday people's lives, right? If you leave it just to government, all you hear is data, right? They'll tell you that 97,000 people visited Sierra Leone. But what they won't tell you is that that number has been stagnant for many, many years. And it's so interesting that Imran pointed, who would want to go to Barbados? 800,000 people go to Barbados every year for tourism. Sierra Leone can't even hit 100,000. So that's just to put stuff in context, right? If we leave it to government, they're always going to want to tell us, oh, these numbers. I think that it's unfortunate that somebody like Imran wants us to celebrate the fact that our president went to Vienna and got donors to commit $800,000 and somehow as a Sierra Leonean, we should be celebrating this, and it's a big thing for our image. It speaks to the level of economic dependency that Sierra Leone has on foreign donors. If you have to consistently go overseas to beg people for money to give you to run your government because you can't raise or generate capital or attract actual foreign direct investment, that's not a good thing. If the companies within your own country, indigenous brands and businesses, are not growing and scaling and exporting at a rate where it's boosting your economy, and you have to go elsewhere to beg for free money or to take loans, we can't continue to celebrate that. We can't let what other people say about us be the benchmark. I'm not going to celebrate Sierra Leone passes the MCC scorecard. I'm happy about it, but what's more important to me is how Sierra Leoneans feel about their experience in Sierra Leone, quality of life for Sierra Leoneans. And that's why citizen journalism is very, very powerful, because when government goes online and says, we have done this, we have done that, we have done this, citizens can disrupt the narrative and say, yeah, you might have done that, but it's not getting to me, right? This is the reality on the ground. This is my story. I think that we need to open the media space and encourage more people to activate their voices. You continue to use your voice. Yes, we know that in more recent times, it's been very difficult for Sierra Leoneans to voice their opinions freely. We know that cyber terrorism or cyber bullying act is out there. So Big Brother is always looking. And so that has impacted the rate at which people voice their concerns. But it's very, very important for people to do digital activism. People need to use their platforms to champion the causes that are important to them, because that's the only way that we'll get a real, fair, and equitable representation of what's going on the ground. Now, yes, I choose, because it's my job to make Sierra Leone famous to the right reasons, to amplify the positive. But it doesn't mean that, like this month, we're doing a Ramadan food drive, right? In Sierra Leone today, 8 out of 10 Sierra Leoneans does not have enough to eat. That's data from the World Food Program. This number has gotten worse every single year. In order for me to be able to raise funds for Sierra Leoneans during Ramadan, I have to share that number. I'm not happy to do it because I don't want to tell the world that my people are hungry, but these are the facts. Right? And out of that digital campaign, to date, we've raised about $4,000 to feed needy families in Poti and in Bananawata. So digital is very important, and you can use your platform however you choose. And it's really important for citizens to continue to represent and project themselves. I just ask that we project all aspects of our lives and not limit it to any one narrative. Because on one issue, Imran and I completely agree. I don't think it's fair to limit any country to just one thing or one narrative. We are more than the news headlines. So When you see something that's negative and you don't think that it's a balanced representation of Sierra Leone, you add another narrative of something else that adds to their story. We can't tell the story in one time. It's not one picture, it's not one video, it's not one headline. All of our voices and what we do online and offline in the media is what constitutes the stories that will come out of Sierra Leone and ultimately rebrand or position Sierra Leone positively with other countries in the world.
Thank you very much, Vickie Remoe, for your time being part of the program.
Oh, one last thing, please. I think that you have done an excellent job today, Fabian. I think that you have I'm so proud of you. I am so incredibly proud of you. As a Sierra Leonean woman in journalism and as a woman in the media, I think that it's abhorrent what happened in the studio today. I wish AYV had turned off Imran's microphone because it was not professional, but you held your own. I'm so proud of you. All of us are proud of you. Imran, if I ever see you in the streets, I go get for tell you what, because this was not right. You should not have spoken to her in that way. Not on Women's Month either. You were condescending to her. You could have still held your own, but you came off as very frustrated and you did not allow her to do her job. You made it a very difficult situation. The producers at AYV should have turned off your microphone because you did a disservice to her. You personalized it and you attacked her on public television. You're an adult. We respect you. You're a leader in our community. You're a government public servant, and you did a disservice to the government on the media today. But Fabian, I'm very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you much, Vickie Remoe.
I think I need to, very quickly.
Okay, I could give you 30 seconds.
Yeah. So Vickie Remoe, whatever I do is nothing personal, yeah? I leave this place going home and able for don't sleep freely, yeah? I think it is also fair that we're supposed to get some adult conversation. And if I think that the moderator is moving towards a certain direction, right, I don't think it's right and particularly correct for the nature of the conversation we should be having. I should be able to point that out. Equally, she held her own and challenged me, yeah, and stopped me. So white person come protect me now and begin to say, no, they're not treating me fairly. But I'm supposed to be able to man up and take which I get now for the duration of the period. And I think, Fabian don't need any compliments. She has been around AYV and done do this work for a very long time. And he understands, she can give and take equally. And she has done so tonight. And she's going home feeling restful and going for sleep fine equally. I hope you understand. Two things where you talk, I think, very inaccurate, Vickie Remoe. On the PPP, on the 800 million, you don't need to celebrate it. That's on a public-private partnership model. I hope you understand.
Unfortunately, we've got prime time news coming up. So this is what would end today's edition of AYV on Sunday. On the panel tonight, we've had Imran Sillah from the Strategic Communications Unit of the Ministry of Information and Civic Education. Also in the studio tonight, we have had Dr. Victor Moinina, Governance Lecturer, Institute of Public Administration and Management, IPAM. We've had Mohamed Jallo, Director, Tourism, Travel and Exchange Program from the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. And online, we've had Vickie Remoe, Public Relations and Digital Media Strategist. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. To the live audience of journalism students from Limpopo University, to you, our lovely audience online, for dropping your comments and your participation to the conversation through our Facebook page. Your time and internet is appreciated. I have been your presenter. I am Fabian Sweel.